Major WWE plans have been scrapped. We have the real reason for a recent major WWE release, and a former world champion's WWE contract is set to expire. And before we get into it, if you're a regular viewer of the channel and haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss the latest pro wrestling news. But let's start then by taking a look at a WWE contract that recently expired. Jerry the King Lawler has long been part of the fabric in WWE, having appeared as a wrestler, manager, commentator, and more recently a kickoff show co-host since 1992. However, it seems that the King's time on WWE screens is coming to an end after his broadcast contract with the company recently expired. According to a fresh report from PW Insider, WWE have opted against renewing the contract that keeps Lawler on television, and they would write, WWE Hall of Famer and one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Jerry Lawler is no longer with World Wrestling Entertainment, PWInsider.com has confirmed with multiple sources. PWInsider.com is told that WWE quietly declined to renew Lawler's broadcast contract, ending a relationship between the two that began back in December 1992, when he shockingly appeared on an episode of WWF Primetime Wrestling. Sources close to the matter have confirmed Lawler's WWE contract expired on the onset of 2024. It should be noted that shortly after the report dropped, a WWE source reached out to PW Insider to confirm that Lawler is still under a WWE Legends deal, which is his second contract with the company. This means that Jerry is still with WWE in that sense, although his second contract that saw him appear on screen on pre-show panels has now ended. A Legends deal means that WWE can produce Jerry Lawler merchandise and action figures, so expect to see more where that came from. Fightful Select too would follow up on the news, providing some information regarding a potential move elsewhere, and when discussing a potential reunion with Jim Ross on AEW television, they would write, initially, there was many responses calling for a Jim Ross reunion, whether it be in AEW or elsewhere, but that's unlikely but not impossible for many reasons. When speaking with AEW sources, we're told Lawler's name hasn't been brought up as a possibility. Outside of that, PW Insider noted that Lawler is still under a Legends deal. The report concluded by saying that Lawler doesn't really follow wrestling much anymore, never mind AEW, this since he suffered a stroke back in February. Surprisingly, this is actually the first time Jerry has gone a full year without wrestling since he began his career, and 2024 will be the first calendar year that he hasn't wrestled in, something that is expected, again due to still feeling the effects of the stroke. Next up, Ric Flair suffered a heart attack in his last match. And speaking of in-ring careers coming to an end, July 31st, 2022 would see quite the unique spectacle in Nashville, Tennessee, where for one night only, Jim Crockett Promotions would return to host the final match of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Whilst the show would be a financial success, with it being the second highest grossing independent show in American wrestling history behind All In 2018, the main event of the night wasn't an easy thing to watch. Speaking on the Jackson podcast recently, Ric Flair would reveal some shocking news that in hindsight makes things even worse. According to Flair, it appeared that he suffered a heart attack during the tag match that saw him team with son-in-law Andrade to take on Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, and here's what he had to say.
I had a heart attack during the match.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know
that.
A lot of people didn't know. I didn't know myself until about 6 months ago, because I went and got I go to the heart doctor like every 6 months because I've got the pacemaker, right? I went to get what's called a calcium scan, which I'd never had before, because a couple of guys died in our business of heart issues, so it kind of scared me. So I went and I blew a number on that, and the guy, they give you the nuclear distress test, shoot you with the dye, put you on the windmill, on the treadmill, everything, right? So it's 2 days of 3 hours of testing. And this is just 6 months ago. The guy takes me in. If you look at your pie, like if you look at your heart like a round pie, right? There's a piece of my heart right here, this big, it's black, it's gone. The guy said, you've had a heart attack in the last 2 years. I said, I've never hurt me. He said, have you passed out in the last 2 years? And during my last match, I passed out 3 times. Yeah, and I thought it was because I was dehydrated. So I went in the locker room with Kid Rock and the Taker. I just drank 2 bottles of Gatorade and went back out to Kid Rock's place all night long. But I had a heart attack.
Whilst at the time, people would joke online about how we could see Rick die in the ring on the night, it appears that we were actually scarily close to this being reality had things gone another way. Perhaps this is a sign that despite the financial rewards, the at the time 73-year-old legend should have probably called it a day long before 2022. And next we have the latest on this year's King and Queen of the Ring event. On last night's episode of Monday Night Raw, this year's King and Queen of the Ring tournament would kick off with round 1 of the red bracket. Prior to the show, it would be confirmed that Drew McIntyre was no longer medically cleared to compete, with main event Jey Uso taking his spot. This following the news that Kofi Kingston had also replaced New Day teammate Xavier Woods. In the end, Gunther, Ilya Dragunov and Jey Uso would all advance to the second round, with wins over Sheamus, Ricochet and Finn Balor in that order, moving one step closer to the crown. On the Queen of the Ring side of things, Asuka would be pulled from the tournament after what Fightful Select are reporting is a legitimate injury, with her being replaced by Dakota Kai. On Raw, Io Sky would defeat Natalya, Lyra Valkyria would defeat Dakota Kai, whilst Zoe Stark would beat Ivy Nile to advance to the second round. This wasn't the only King and Queen of the Ring news, however, as 2 title matches have been added to the card of the show itself, with Sami Zayn set to defend his newly won Intercontinental Championship in triple threat action against Chad Gable and Bronson Reed, with Becky Lynch putting her brand new WWE Women's World title up for grabs against Liv Morgan, who was the person responsible for Rhea Ripley being stripped of the title due to injury. And next we have the real reason for a recent major WWE release. Shortly after his Olympic gold medal amateur wrestling win in Tokyo 2021, a bidding war would ensue between UFC and WWE for the signature of Gable Steveson, with him securing a lucrative contract with the latter. Fast forward to 2024 and Gable once again finds himself in the free agency market following his recent release from his WWE contract, a move that happened too late for him to make an attempt to join the 2024 American Olympic Wrestling team. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio this week, Dave Meltzer would claim to know the reason for Stevenson's dismissal from the Performance Center, with it being linked to a lack of progression between the ropes, and Dave would note, all these cuts were done on the same day. A lot of people in the amateur world are going, oh my god, how horrible if they cut him 3 weeks ago, but they probably weren't thinking cuts 3 weeks ago. The reality is, it's another one. His contract was a very big money contract and he wasn't cutting it. That's the thing. It's very, very hard. You're talking about a guy who from literally 7th grade was an incredible athlete. This guy probably is the best heavyweight wrestler ever in the United States, the best wrestler period out of the state of Minnesota, and Minnesota has got a lot of great wrestlers. This isn't the first time we've heard of things not going to plan for Gable in WWE, as a similar report would appear in the Wrestling Observer newsletter all the way back in 2022. It seems that whilst there was hope that WWE had the next Kurt Angle on their hands, things haven't gone to plan for the Minnesota native. It'll be interesting to see if UFC once again step in to try and sign him, which is strange considering WWE and UFC are now under the same umbrella. Next up, a former world champion's WWE contract is set to expire. So far in 2024, WWE have managed to lock down several of their key talents to new contracts, wrestlers who had deals that were set to end before the turn of the new year. This means that names including Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest are all now staying with WWE for many more years to come, although there's still more names that have yet to commit. Speaking with Metro UK this week, former WWE Universal Champion Kevin Owens would reveal that he has just 9 months left on his WWE contract, this after he signed a 3-year deal back in late 2021. Here's what Owens would say regarding his future in the company. I don't really take anything for granted. I have 9 months left on my contract and I don't know what can happen from here on out. This has been my home for 10 years and it's beyond the locker room. There's some very, very, very special people that work behind the scenes that I've become very close with, and I really can't imagine not seeing them as part of my life. It's good to have somebody to bounce around, somebody you trust. When I got here, I really got close with Finn Balor right away, and I could tell this is going to be a guy I could trust, and now he's like a brother to me. We might not be together all the time. Me and Sami Zayn are on different brands, so we don't see each other as much. We're always in contact, and when it comes along, we have a sounding board. I'm very lucky to be living what I'm living. It's easy to forget it when it's something you do a lot. It kind of becomes the usual everyday thing, and you forget how special it is. Whilst there will likely be many Kevin Steen is All Elite memes floating around in the coming months, much like there was back in 2021, it appears that the prize fighter currently intends on sticking around in WWE, although you never know how things will play out going forward. What we do know is that All Elite Wrestling and Tony Khan plan to continue to be competitive in the free agents market, and we also know that Owens is good friends with the Young Bucks, but he could re-sign with WWE before those talks even unfold.